There's a bird outside your window right now. Maybe a crow, maybe a jay, maybe something you've never bothered to name. You've watched it peck at the ground, pull a worm, fly away, and filed it under nature, under background, under not particularly interesting. Here is what you didn't see. That bird holds a multi-step problem in working memory and suppresses the solution until exactly the right moment. It can pick up a tool, decide it's wrong, put it down, find a better one, and return to the task without losing its place.
In 2023, at the University of Cambridge, New Caledonian crows solved a 4-step sequential puzzle on the very first attempt. No trial and error, no coaching. They reasoned it through. Today, I'll walk you through 7 documented behaviors, each one harder to dismiss than the last. Stay until the end, because the final section isn't really about birds. It's about what we decided intelligence was.
For most of recorded history, we drew a clean line. On one side, humans. Rational, deliberate, capable of abstract thought. On the other side, everything else, driven by instinct, reactive, mechanical, predictable. It was a comfortable arrangement. It meant our minds were singular, unprecedented, the product of something irreducible. The arrangement was wrong. Not slightly wrong, not wrong at the edges, wrong at the foundation. The line was never clean. It was a story we told because the alternative was deeply disorienting. Because admitting that a bird outside your kitchen window might be thinking forces you to ask what exactly you mean when you say thinking at all.
The corvid family, crows, ravens, jays, jackdaws, has a brain-to-body ratio comparable to that of great apes. Their Nidopallium caudolaterale, the prefrontal equivalent cortex, handles executive function, working memory, and future planning. The same tasks your frontal lobe handles right now while watching this. That's not metaphor, that's anatomy, and it changes everything that comes after. We didn't draw that line because the evidence supported it. We drew it because we needed it. Every civilization, every philosophy, every legal and moral system we built rested on that line holding firm. It didn't hold.
Subscribe to the Invisible Courtyard. Before we go further, a definition. A tool is not just any object used in service of a goal. A rock dropped on a nut is not a tool, not in the cognitive sense. That's ballistic physics applied by instinct. A tool in the cognitive sense requires 3 things: selection, modification, and application to a problem never solved before. Crows clear all 3. In New Caledonia, an island archipelago in the Pacific, wild crows have been observed cutting pandanus leaves into specific shapes. Not tearing, cutting. They position the leaf, grip it, and apply directional force to produce a hooked edge with a precise angle and length.
The hook is then used to extract insects from narrow bark crevices deep inside dead trees. Here is what that requires. The crow must hold a mental image of the finished tool before the tool exists. It must work backward from a goal to a process, from a desired outcome to the steps required to reach it. That cognitive operation is called means-end reasoning, Until 2002, it was considered exclusive to humans and great apes. It is not. The crow doesn't find a stick and discover what it can do. It decides what it needs and then finds or builds exactly that. The difference between those two things is not small. It is the difference between reaction and intention, between responding to the world as it is and constructing the world as it needs to be. That distinction used to belong only to us.
There is so much more they aren't telling us. Subscribe to never miss a signal. Stay with me. This is where it gets harder to dismiss. In controlled laboratory settings, researchers presented New Caledonian crows with what's called a meta-tool problem. The setup? Food is locked inside a box. The only way to open the box is with a long stick. But the long stick is locked inside a second box. The only way to open that second box is with a short stick, which is lying on the table. The crow picks up the short stick, uses it to retrieve the long stick, uses the long stick to open the food box. 3 steps, 2 tools, 1 problem it had never seen. What makes this remarkable isn't that the crow solved it. It's how the crow solved it. It didn't try the short stick on the food box first. It didn't attempt the long stick on the second box. It went directly through the sequence, as if it had already traced the logical chain before touching anything. Deeper tone. Cognitive scientists call this prospective cognition, the ability to mentally simulate a future state and work backward to current action. In humans, it activates the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus simultaneously. In crows, neuroimaging shows activation in the exact functional analogs of both structures. They are not mimicking the solution. They are deriving it. Now, we're approaching something most people don't want to sit with. Planning requires more than memory. Memory is the past. Planning requires the construction of something that doesn't yet exist. A simulation of a future state, populated with objects, actions, and outcomes the animal has never experienced in that specific combination. That is imagination. Not poetry, not metaphor. The clinical, functional definition. The generation of novel internal representations, decoupled from immediate sensory input. A crow in a lab in Oxford looks at a glass tube. Water level low. A floating reward just out of reach. It looks at the objects on the table.
A stone, a rubber eraser, a hollow cylinder. It drops the stone, the water rises, the reward floats up. But here is the part that matters. In a follow-up study, researchers replaced the stones with objects of varying density. The crow tested an object, and if it sank too slowly, discarded it and picked up a denser one. It wasn't responding to the result, it was predicting the result before committing. That is not trial and error learning. That is hypothesis testing. In a bird, possibly in your backyard,
There
right
is a
now.
hidden world happening right now, just beyond the glass. Subscribe, and let's keep watching together. Let's complicate it further. Tool use, on its own, could still theoretically be explained as a very sophisticated learned reflex. Unusual, impressive, but containable. What breaks that containment is social transmission. The ability to watch another individual, extract the principle behind their action, and apply it to a novel problem. Scrub jays, common in North America, possibly visible from your kitchen window right now. They have been documented watching other jays hide food. They don't just observe, they track. They remember which individual was watching and from exactly where. And if they were observed while caching their own food, they return later when no one is watching and move the cache to a new location. That requires modeling another mind, understanding that the observer has a goal to steal, and that this goal can be frustrated by deception. Developmental psychologists call this capacity theory of mind. The ability to attribute mental states to others and understand that those states differ from your own. In human children, it typically emerges around age 4. In scrub jays, it has been documented in functionally equivalent behavior. They are not simply competing, they are anticipating your anticipation. Read that again, slowly. They are anticipating your anticipation. But there is one more layer, and this is the part most researchers didn't expect to find. Scrub jays that have stolen food themselves are significantly more likely to recache after being watched. Jays with no history of theft are not. The bird applies its own experience of deception to model the intentions of others. It knows what a thief thinks because it has been one. That is not instinct. That is inference from personal history applied to social prediction. In your backyard. Right now.
If you're ready to decode the secret language outside your window, subscribe to the Invisible Courtyard.
Most of what I've described so far involves species that researchers have studied for decades. But in 2009, something happened in a laboratory in Cambridge that no one had predicted. Researchers presented rooks, a corvid species not known for tool use in the wild, with the same floating reward problem used with crows. The rooks had never used tools, not in the wild, not in captivity. Their species has no documented tool tradition. None. They solved the problem on the first exposure. Not after observation, not after coaching. After one look at the setup, they dropped stones into the tube and retrieved the reward. This is the detail that should stop you cold. Tool use, in that case, was not learned behavior. It was derived from physical reasoning alone. The rook understood that a solid object displaces water. It had never needed that knowledge before, but the capacity to reason about physical causality was already there. Dormant, waiting for a problem that required it. That is not a trained animal performing a trick. That is a mind encountering a new class of problem and solving it from first principles. Now, step back further, much further. Corvids diverged from the common avian ancestor approximately 30 million years ago. Primates diverged from the common mammalian ancestor approximately 85 million years ago. Two completely separate evolutionary paths, separated by hundreds of millions of years of independent development. No shared lineage, no inherited solution. And yet, both arrived at the same answer: flexible, prospective, socially embedded intelligence. Cognitive scientists call this convergent evolution, the independent emergence of equivalent capacities in unrelated lineages under similar environmental pressure. It means intelligence is not a singular invention. It is a solution, and nature found it more than once. That answer was not uniquely ours. We arrived at it, so did they.
Subscribe to the Invisible Courtyard. Here is where I need you to stay with me. Everything I've described, the sequential reasoning, the hypothesis testing, the social deception, the dormant physical cognition, none of it emerged because we taught them. None of it was installed by proximity to humans. It evolved over millions of years in environments that demanded it, in forests and coastlines and cities where the difference between solving the problem and not solving it was survival. And now I want you to sit with the question this raises. Not how smart are birds? That question is too small. The real question is this: if intelligence, genuine, flexible, forward-looking intelligence, can emerge independently in a creature with a brain the size of a walnut, what does that tell us about what intelligence actually is? Is it a product of size, of cortical architecture, of social complexity? Or is it something more fundamental? A property that emerges wherever a system is complex enough, social enough, and pressured enough to need it. We built our entire moral and philosophical framework on a distinction that turns out to be a matter of degree, not kind. The question isn't whether birds can think. The question is what we do now that we know they can. I want to end with something specific, not an abstraction. You've walked past birds your entire life, hundreds of thousands of them. You've heard them without listening, seen them without watching.
At some point in the last decade, a crow near you made a decision, a real one. It assessed a situation, weighed options, selected an approach, failed, revised, and succeeded. It may have watched you in the process, cataloged your face, your pattern, your predictability. It may have shared that information with others. You were part of its problem-solving environment, and you didn't know. In a few days, you'll be outside. You'll see a crow on a fence post, or a jay pulling at bark, and something will shift. Not dramatically, quietly. You'll think, I don't actually know what's happening there. And that thought, that single uncomfortable pause, is the beginning of something. Have you ever had a crow visit you in a way that felt like more than coincidence? A moment where you felt truly seen? Please share your story in the comments below. I read every single one because those are the stories that stay with me the longest. There is a hidden world happening right now, just beyond the glass. Subscribe, and let's keep watching together.